Welcome back, everybody. We'll call the Committee of the Whole meeting to order at 7:15. Disclosures of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Are there any now? Or you can always bring them up later. Item C is consent reports. So we've got the agenda, the approval of the cow minutes from last meeting, the public engagement plan, the MRPC shareholder report, and the Lanark County OPPQ on stats. Is there anything out of those that someone would like to pull to talk about or ask questions? Mayor Lowry?
We don't necessarily need to pull it. I just wanted to ask a question about C5. The OPT status.
Sure. Councillor Ferguson, are you okay? I assume it's to Councillor Ferguson?
It could be the staff that
Okay,
follow up.
go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify. I'm glad that we have some stats. We haven't seen any in a little while. So that's a positive. I thought with the whole changeover of coming to one county board, I thought at one point we were told that we would still be able to get our own stats. Has that changed, or do we need to request it, or am I mistaken?
You're not totally mistaken.
Okay.
Yes, there will be an opportunity to get individual stats. They're working on that now. And I think, as I said, the last meeting, the speeding is universal to the county, right? So that is shared by another group. But the individual stats, then individual visits by the commanding officer can be arranged and will be arranged upon request. And we're trying to schedule that.
Okay.
And at the same time, the detachment here, or sorry, Lanark County, is one of the youngest in the Eastern Ontario. So they are doing significant training as required, of course, not only from boating, but also the side-by-sides, snowmobiles,
Right.
driving. So all of those compact the opportunity to address patrol hours, which is a big issue. I think a big issue is the number of patrol hours within each individual municipality. So that is being addressed, and hopefully will be addressed over the next couple of meetings, and in a lot better position to provide you with uptight new information, if that's of any help to you.
So it's not a matter of just generating a report from Mississippi Mills. It's more complicated than that.
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, fair enough.
that's
And
reasonable.
do we request, just one other question, is this something we request of you being on the board, or is it something that we should have Director Williams be chasing, or both?
I guess that it should come maybe from him,
Okay,
I would think. If he has something specific, obviously, and I do ask at the board.
yeah, okay,
So maybe that's the level it should come from.
okay. All
Yeah.
right. Can we maybe direct staff then to follow up on that for us? Like when the detachment's capable of getting that level of information to all of us? Sure, I'll move that resolution. Thank you.
So Mayor Lowry has moved a resolution to request information about how we can receive
Yeah,
Mississippi Mills.
the
stats.
Mississippi Mills stats, similar to what we had received in the past.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Councillor Holmes, thank you. Any more discussion? All in favor? Okay, that carries. No problem. I need to have all the answers, Councillor Ferguson. Wasn't worried a bit. Recommended motion that Committee of the Whole recommend Council approve the consent recommendations C1 through C5. Should I include 5 still or 4? Okay. Is there a mover and seconder for the consent reports? Councillor Suter and Councillor Ferguson, thank you. All in favor? And that carries. We don't have any consultant presentations tonight, and so we have our staff reports, and Corey will be up here for both of them. First up is the draft Public Works Service Delivery Review. I'll leave the motion till later.
through the chair. I would greatly like to thank, before I start any of this, all the assistance I've had from my staff in preparing this, along with the public council, our other departments within the municipality, and other interactions that we've had. It is a substantial report, I believe, as you can see, and I will try and make my presentation brief and allow you as much time for questions that you have. So the review, the scope and methodology of the review, it's a comprehensive assessment of the public works capacity, infrastructure management, and service delivery effectiveness. This review builds on previous reports, including the 2020 Strategy Corp study that was done, the water and wastewater service delivery review, and the water and waste or the waste management service strategy that was, they were both done in 2024. The information was drawn from employee surveys, interdepartmental feedback, council input, public surveys, and peer municipality benchmarking across Ontario, with a focus on assessing current capacity, identifying infrastructure and service risks, comparing peer municipalities, and examining the alignment between staffing resources and service expectations. The analysis reveals a high-performing department operating at its practical limits with early signs of strain from the lean staffing model. Some departmental strengths: operational excellence. There's a strong safety culture with a consistent training, appropriate PPE, and accountability. I'm actually going to interject with a quick little anecdote from today. We had some summer students start, and the Ministry of Labor stopped and did a site inspection on our summer students who were working out in the community. The report from the Ministry of Labor came back as a positive. They were able to demonstrate that they had received significant amounts of training with WHMIS, with traffic safety, with their driving, with overall operations. They were wearing all their PPE. It was a very positive report. And that just demonstrates that we do have programs in place, not just in our department, but across the municipality, and a culture of safety that it really hammers home this point that students who have just started were able to demonstrate safety to a Ministry of Labor officer, and that they've been trained and they were using it. So that's a very positive. Our department is an early adopter of digital tools, including the GIS program, digital logbooks, digital service requests, work orders, and all this helps support data-driven decisions. Delivery of service with strong fiscal management. And then we have a culture of collaboration. Our interdepartmental relationships consistently are positive, with Public Works being viewed as knowledgeable and solution-oriented. Public surveys confirm overall satisfaction with our services, particularly with winter maintenance, waste collection, and responsiveness. And active participation in partnerships and shared services, supporting innovation and continuous improvement and cost controls. We work well with other departments to implement these things. So from an infrastructure and network context, when we start looking at our municipality, when we look at us compared to our comparators, we're ranked second among all the comparators for the length of roadways. Our network includes 371 total kilometers of roads, with diverse surfaces varying from gravel to hard surfaces, urban and rural maintenance complexities, and it requires varying maintenance approaches. We manage 40.8 kilometers of sidewalk, which is significantly higher than all but Perth and Loyalist as our comparators, who manage similar networks. And we have a very diverse mix of urban and rural infrastructure, including water systems, waste management, which creates complexity requiring specialized knowledge, equipment, and skill sets. Our staffing analysis, we're operating at capacity limits. When we look at this, when normalized for infrastructure complexity and water system management, Mississippi Mills operates at 53 kilometers of roadway per operator. Compared to municipalities of similar complexity, say North Grenville and Loyalist, who have very similar complexity makeups, they're at 19 and 32 kilometers per operator. Supervisory staffing levels are lean with a high ratio of direct reports, particularly for the operations manager. And our fleet to mechanic ratio is the highest amongst our comparators with 33 pieces of fleet to 1 mechanic. It goes into further to define that within the report, but for the purpose of the presentation, we're trying to streamline this. Administrative staffing analysis is operating at capacity limits. The administration of the Public Works Department is very lean when compared to most similar municipalities. For our technical and project management staffing, when we compare ourselves particularly to North Grenville and to Loyalist Township, which are the closest comparators to ourselves, they have 7 and 6 technologist and project management positions compared to our 2. The total administration of the departments demonstrate that Mississippi Mills, when compared to similar municipalities, is operating at 50% capacity for staffing in the administration ends of things. So once again, Loyalist and North Grenville are sitting at 10 and 11 employees in the administration of their department. We're sitting at 5. The result is that core and legislative services are completed, but other works are delayed. We're very good at putting out what we're required to put out, but a lot of other works take some time to get out the door. Our critical structural risks that were identified as part of the report: lean staffing is at its limits. Administrative, supervisory, technical, and project management roles have not kept pace with growth and expanding responsibilities within the limited coverage and high workloads. There's a succession risk. There are some key positions with critical corporate knowledge, including the director, the operations manager, and the public works admin, that have possible retirement opportunities between 1 and 7 years, depending on where we're at with them. Administrative capacity. Regulatory tasks are completed, but planning, policy renewals, tendering timelines, and interdepartmental coordination are frequently delayed due to workload pressures. Undefined levels of service. Services provided in many areas exceed the provincial requirements, but lack formal council-approved service standards, creating challenges when managing public expectations and defending service decisions. Gravel roads. The most significant community pressure point at this point is gravel roads. While the maintenance practices are sound, there's a need for clearly defined service levels and consistent public education. And then fleet capacity gaps. We have a large fleet with extended useful service life and limited maintenance capacity, and reliance on external support for causes operational downtime risks. So our gravel roads are really the most significant point of friction, and this comes from our surveys, this comes from our experience. Maintenance follows a seasonal cycle and meets generally accepted practices. Spring grading and gravel applications are significantly impacted by weather and environmental conditions. Annual calcium applications effectively reduce dust and ongoing maintenance needs. Gravel roads are a top public concern and a frequently raised issue, and it is frequently raised as an issue to councillors. Gaps exist in formal service standards, condition assessment, and public education. We recommend developing formal service standards supported by a needs study and a gravel roads review for council adoption. We do quite a good job, actually, of the way we maintain our gravel roads, but without a set service standard and without public education, it's very difficult to communicate it. And when people see that there's concerns, it's a lot easier to defend those concerns with service standards that we can point to. So coming out of the review, so some of the key projects and implementation timelines, it's broken down into some different categories. Operational projects, which have a focus, operational projects, they are focusing on gravel road review and needs study to establish service standards and identify improvements. We have human resources projects to address staffing gaps, our public works administrator / coordinator position, a GIS asset management coordinator, a full-time mechanic that would be budget neutral are some of the key positions. Fleet projects, including a mid-sized street sweeper for in-house routine sweeping, and a winter maintenance vehicle will be needed to address growth in the future. And then there's policy projects that will facilitate establishing clear service levels, including winter maintenance standards, updating existing bylaws, and fleet management policies. For 2026-2027, we are recommending that we proceed with gravel roads review, and a gravel roads needs study, initiate service standards and policy updates, prepare job descriptions for proposed positions, and update the entrance policy and bylaw. 2027 specifically, we would be seeking from council to fill a public works administrator position, and then moving the current administrator position into a public works coordinator position, which is more reflective of the duties that are done at this time. There is a GIS and asset management coordinator. There's a lot of difficulties getting a lot of stuff out the door. This would allow our environmental coordinator to focus on their works, our public works technologist to focus on the project management, and then this person would maintain and update our GIS and asset management information, which would support multiple departments, including development services and engineering. It would also help facilitate works with the financial department. And it would create a much more balanced workload. And then the full-time mechanic, which would be budget neutral, paid for by reduction of services that we are currently farming out. And then in the 1 to 3 years, we would be needing for growth purposes a transportation operator and a water operator, as well as a new light-duty truck for transportation. Once again, this is to support the growth, and new medium-duty street sweeper to fill an operational gap. In the 1 to 5 years, a non-unionized operations coordinator position, which would fill an operational gap and facilitate growth, as well as the fleet management policy to be created and formalized, and continued equipment renewal. And in the 5 to 10 year range, we would need, with the growth projections, an additional transportation operator, a water operator, and an additional winter maintenance vehicle, whether that be a snowplow or an additional grader. Operationally, we would have to do a further review to determine which would be the better use. And then continuous throughout this timeline would be to update our public education and communications and update and review our bylaws and policies. There's an extended list within the report itself. So, questions?
Questions? Do we have any questions for Corey? No, you're good. Okay. Councillor Ferguson, why don't you start?
Couple, Corey. Thank you very much. Very extensive. Certainly lists out how we stand, I think, in comparison. Your comparators are great. The key projects that you've listed, how do you plan to complete them? In staff or through consultants?
That is a very interesting question. A lot of the key projects are hiring of staff so we can do our work, right? Initially, there is the opportunity that if need be, we could go through a consultant. But some of the key things that need to be done really would focus, at least in the immediate start, would be the hiring of these staff so that we have capacity to do our jobs. So the answer is in-house, if we are able to obtain the staffing. If we're not able to obtain the staffing, we would have to reach out for consulting support.
Okay, do I have one more? And the key projects, I'm assuming from reading them, it's very extensive. Are they prioritized?
They are put
They are
forward in the
prioritized.
list of timing that they should
Yep.
be, sequentially that they should be done.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Holmes, did you have your hand up?
Thank you, Corey. A lot of work went into that report. I found it quite technical and at times I got kind of lost in the technical stuff. I noticed you used the term lean a lot. Are you talking about lean methodology or just lean as a description of your staff?
That would be lean as in a description of our staff. The lean methodology or the Deming method, if you will, is something separate from what we were talking about. Lean is, and it's the description that was used by Strategy Corp as well. So once again, building on Strategy Corp's previous work, the definition used by Strategy Corp was to demonstrate that we had minimal resources.
Yeah. Actually, as I read the report, I thought you're doing way too much work, and how can you do your work with, the amount of staff and it sounds that, there's certainly a need to review the staffing. And I was thinking lean methodology would be I found the report technical, but I'd like to see more meat on the bones in terms of how you're going to how your operations are doing and your staffing issues. And I thought lean methodology would be a wonderful way to review all that. And, as I saw, the amount of work that the admin person and the operations manager, it sounds like poor operation manager never gets to bed. Is there some short-term fixes that you could work with HR to kind of relieve some of that? Is there some staff who could take that role on, as a on-call person once in a while? Or
I don't think the answer is in short-term on-call staffing.
no, I wasn't meaning it that way. I was meaning it in terms of as a short-term measure until you can get some fixes in place. Is there any opportunity to do that? That's all I ask.
I don't foresee significant opportunity to have short-term Band-Aids. And not using that term well, but a short-term strategy is very difficult, particularly with the key roles that we need to support, because by the time we train someone, there's a lot of effort put into training of that person. And if we look at the timelines for the short-term implementations that are recommended for our human resources issues, we would achieve in a very systematic and timely manner, very similar effects.
Okay, that's all my questions for now. Thanks.
Deputy Mayor, did I see your hand up?
Yes, I was just wondering, it's a great report, Corey, of course, and I know you put a lot of work into it. I'm just wondering, you're looking into the future pretty good, eh? So I'm wondering, are we tying the hands of other councils by approving this, or is it everything going to come forward to the next council? That's my question.
If we look at the recommendations, a significant, can we pull the recommendations up, please? Sorry. A significant amount of them are recommended to be brought forward for budget review at their appropriate time. No, that is direct staff to bring the remaining projects forward for budgetary consideration as per the recommended timeline for each, right? So there would be, you're committing that we're going to do the review to bring them forward for budgetary consideration, not necessarily that we're fully implementing them.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Councillor Suter and then Mayor Lauer.
Just a couple of things. You mentioned gravel roads as being the prime friction point, which is a nice way of saying initiator of complaints. Do service standards similar to hardtop roads exist for gravel roads, first of all? And if so, can they be adapted for our use?
We have done some preliminary reviews into what other communities have. There are some, but much like Mississippi Mills, gravel roads for most communities are not the primary concern for the last several decades. They still are getting maintained, but developing the actual formalized service standards and recommendations and best practices are just that. There's best practices that most people follow. Most communities don't have a formalized service standard for their gravel roads, and that's what we need to do is develop that. But there are some out there that we can work with to aid us in adopting service standards. Yes.
Okay.
They're very, admittedly, very limited compared to what we have for hard surface roads. Hard surface roads, you do have an abundance of information to pull from.
Maybe to try and answer Councillor Suter through the chair. I think in the report, it was mentioned something like minimum maintenance standards from the province. And you saw based on the size of a pothole, it dictates how many days you come out to fix it. What you, I guess, find the most, maybe, I won't say illogical, but that's kind of the word I would say coming. The bigger the hole, the longer we leave it, according to the minimum maintenance standards. And that doesn't seem to be like, I think for something like an 8-centimeter hole on a gravel road, we can wait 30 days to fix it. Is that correct, Director?
We have up to
30 days to do. Well, I mean, I think that's one thing, do you spend your time measuring it and whatnot? But I think the bigger point, going back to your idea of service levels and service standards, that's considered the minimum maintenance that you would do. Again, the bigger the hole, the longer we leave it. Is that really what the municipality wants to do? Is that really where you want to be? We know that those are the types of things that result in more complaints. And Councillor Suter, you're absolutely right. The gravel roads are an area that we do receive a lot of complaints, particularly this time of year, where it's a sore point, to say the least, at this point in the year. But I think part of what was trying to be brought forward in the report and the presentation is an issue of, we've spent a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of resources categorizing maybe higher value. What I mean by that is higher dollar value assets, pipes in the ground, pavement on roads, concrete for sidewalks. There's a lot of money goes in very short pieces of asset. The gravel roads are not as expensive. They seem to be not as significantly studied, not just in Mississippi Mills, but in a lot of communities. And I think at this point in time, with the work that has been done in the asset management, we're in a good position on the pipes we have in the ground, sewer and water, our storm sewers. We have good information on the sidewalks. We have good information on asphalt. Now it's time to do the same level with gravel roads. I think part of the issue that I've seen looking around on what's available is it seems a little more art than it does science. When we think about pavement, we run vehicles down the road with multiple sensors on it. We have cameras. We do a lot of work. We don't seem to do that exact same level of effort. And I just mean broadly as the municipal sector on the gravel roads. I think this is going to take a little bit of time to figure out if you want to, really knock it out of the park. And I think what the director is saying is you're better off building internal capacity in order to do this type of work with some extra staff so that that staff stays around rather than train them up to go somewhere else. Right? I think that's part of it. We want to create this internal capacity. And what we're seeing is we're probably a little bit short on some staff in that kind of project management role. So you want this studied? Who's going to study it? Are we going to bring in a consultant or are we going to do it internal? And I think to Councillor Holmes' point, maybe Councillor Holmes, it might be something like maybe what you would consider a short-term contract, which could probably be a 1 or 2 year contract for someone like a CET level person that would bring some capacity and knowledge to the role. We have talked about trying to have a floater admin person. If council is not willing to go to the full extent of hiring another staff person, you could do certain things like this. But I think there does have to be a recognition from council that, this is probably the biggest spend that you have as a department. It could probably use some extra resources. And I think what they're saying is they do a lot of what you consider the priority work. Let's clear the roads of snow. Let's get the gravel roads in place. Let's streets, do the sidewalks, et cetera. Keep the water flowing. That's what we do. But when you ask for those extras, like, can you study this? Can you do that? That's where things get slowed down because that's not where we have the extra capacity. So it's not the right word, but it's the extras. So I know Chair Lowe, thanks very much for the extra time on that, answering that question. But Councillor Lowe, hopefully that speaks to you and hopefully it addresses some of Councillor Holmes. Thank you.
Thanks. CAO Kelly, I think that was actually pretty helpful. Do you have a follow-up, Councillor Suter, quickly? Or
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, I asked specifically about the existence of standards, and this has gone through to the fact that this is what you want to study. But what I was wondering, because it seems that for decades, and I've only been here 3 years, but for a long time, you spend most of the summer, spring, summer, and fall, getting the gravel roads up to snuff. And then comes winter. And then we start it all again. And what I'm trying to ask is, are there other ways of dealing with gravel roads? Are we at the point where we have to consider doing structural work to some of the heavily traveled ones and doing some kind of surface treatment on them? Or is that something that's almost utopian and totally beyond the possibility of the municipality to try to identify and carry out?
So one of the recommendations is for a gravel roads needs study. The purpose of the gravel roads needs study is to identify areas of gravel roads that need subgrade work, that need improved drainage, and the opportunities that we would have around that. And then we could use that to prioritize those needs. To go further beyond that, to talk about whether we would, provide a surface treatment on them or another form of hard surfacing. There's scales of economy, and there are challenges with our gravel roads. There are certainly economic benefits to our gravel roads as well compared to hard surfaced roads. And there are certainly some challenges in where these gravel roads lie and the substrate materials that they're built on that may preclude them from being a good candidate to have a hard surfaced road, particularly with the level of traffic that is going across them. But the idea of this, particularly project number 2, the gravel roads need study, is to identify the options and opportunities we have on our roads to determine what we can do for those roads. If that helps.
Yes, good. Oh, one other question, if I may. What in the world is an entrance policy?
That is the policy and bylaw that we have to determine when and how entrances are permitted for properties, for driveways, or for field entrances and the like.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Suter. Over to Mayor Lowry and then Councillor Holmes.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few things to say. I think the first, first I want to thank you, Director, for taking me out yesterday. I've been here for nearly 12 years and I learned maybe not more, but as much as I've learned, around the table asking questions. Like that was really, really helpful. And I was talking to Councillor Ferguson about the microsurfacing project at Ramsey Meadows and, how that is holding up so well 13 years later. And, the test street showing otherwise, like that was really, really helpful to see. I am quite aware that, you and your team are very much stretched. Your working capacity. We knew this in 2020 when Strategy Corps came and talked to us. Not all of us were here in 2020, but as a body, council knew that our public works department did not have the staffing complement that comparator communities have. Like when we look either like the operator to kilometers or the fleet to mechanic or, any of the other numbers that we're seeing there, like we're just not in the ballpark. And I don't think our goal as decision makers here is to make sure that, we're neck and neck with the neighbors and ensuring that we have the same number of operators. Like that's not what I'm trying to suggest. But what I am trying to say is that we do know that you're stretched. And these numbers, 33 pieces of equipment to the one mechanic, 52, 53 kilometers per operator. Like that's not reasonable. That's not reasonable to expect the high level of service that we do expect. But then I'm also thinking about the additional challenges that you and your department are looking at. Digital tools, the citywide piece is certainly one thing. The demands of asset management planning and what the province is expecting to see is very different than what it was 10 years ago. And the demands on you and your staff to create the information that needs to go to other departments to fill out those very, very important plans. We've got more road network. The sophistication of the tools themselves are more so than in the past. We've got Zach working on climate change. That wasn't even a thing 10 years ago that we were talking about. Not that it wasn't a thing, but it wasn't something Mississippi Mills was taking action upon. But then on the other side too, the events that are occurring now, the weather events means more work for you and for your staff. The participation of you and John on MECG, like there's all of these additional asks that we have of you and your department on top of what we knew in 2020 from Strategy Corps. So I wanted to start by acknowledging that. And you certainly have my support in a lot of the recommendations that you have here, but I do have some questions about some of them. And I'm thinking about early in the term, we had a discussion about a different department. It was building and planning and how we wanted to make sure they were staffed up with who they needed, what were the positions. So then, the director went away and came back and said, this is what I need. And you know, we did what we said we would do and supported that department. And I feel like we're in a similar position here in that we have really high expectations. We know that the number of calls and the interfacing with the community is really high for you and your department. So, and I'm not saying this to question what you've put in our report here tonight, but I guess I am questioning some of the things that you put in the report. And I just want to understand it a little bit more, not to suggest these aren't the right things, but to understand that they are the right things. And it could be that this is, Madam Chair, like I don't want to put the director or any of his staff on the spot here. It could be a go away and think about it and come back. But a couple of the things that I'm thinking about is just the awareness of the lack of operators. And where's my list here? The first three, let's see here, the first three positions, like a coordinator admin situation to support what's happening now, the coordinator for the asset management planning and GIS, and then a full-time mechanic. And I understand the full-time mechanic would be revenue neutral. So we're really only talking about 2 positions. And I am thinking too, for making the mechanic full-time, there is some operating that individual's doing at this time. And none of those first 3 positions, I think, would affect operating. And does it need to? And you don't need to answer that question right now, but looking at what 2027's asks would be, is that on the right side of things, or does it need to be a balance with some of those operators that are coming up in years 1 to 3 or 1 to 5? So that's one thing I'm thinking about. And the other thing I'm thinking about, which is maybe sounding a little contrary to the comment I just made about operators, but items 15 to 21, there we are, yeah. Items 15 to 21, there is a lot of work there, and that's on top of number 1 and number 2. And I would not challenge that those aren't all important. I see them all as important things that we need to see happening in your department. And I would certainly highlight and underline and put in bold number 1 and number 2, the operational gravel review and the gravel roads needs study. But the timelines that had been attached to items 15 through 21 seem really optimistic, knowing you don't have a lot of staff there. And I think maybe what I would like to do is, like, as I said, I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but I would like to see all of this really important work happen, and not happen over 5 to 10 years, but over the numbers of years that you've indicated in here. And I think, like we did with building and planning, I'd like to know if the policy side and the need side, in terms of that side of the house, is that the right complement of positions, the right timing on those positions? I don't question that you need them at all. I just want to make sure, are these the right positions at the right time? Because I want to make sure that the Public Works Department is really set up for success. Because we can't push departments to, perform at optimal levels and not have the people, not have the resources. Like, that doesn't work. And I think if, I keep pointing to the building and planning department as an example, like, I think we've committed as a council to making sure that they were well-resourced and well-staffed. And now we're seeing the benefit of that. And I'd like to see the Public Works Department set up in a similar way. So if we were making decisions tonight, again, I would like to highlight and put in bold and really large font and put a date, very early possible date on number 1 and number 2. Those are really important, I think, to get off the ground as soon as possible. And I'd like to understand, as I say, the staffing complement, the policies side of work that's proposed, but the reality of, are there enough people doing the right work, and are these the right jobs at the right time to really set you up for success? So I'll leave it there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go to Councillor Holmes, but I just wanted to tag on to what the mayor said. Is I love opportunities to review a staffing structure and see what changes can be made. However, we know how busy you are. Getting to that and sustaining the attention on that is almost impossible. So I'm sort of thinking bringing in an expert consultant who can do a operational review, a staffing review, just to work with you to see what you actually need. I mean, I'm sure you have a really good idea, but maybe there are some things that we don't know that would actually help you out more. Anyway, that's my thoughts for now. Councillor Holmes?
Thank you. I think I'm just going to add on to the last two comments. It's kind of almost summarizes what I've been trying to say and not very well. I realize you need more staff. There's no doubt in my mind. It's an excellent opportunity to really evaluate and decide what staff you do need. And sometimes a third party, whether it be a consultant or a coach or whatever, can help you with that. I happen to agree that, you know, your first two up there, they are essential. And just a question, the 65,000, is that going to be enough to do a needs study? You're not going to try to do that in-house, are you?
So the need study would be that would be our high level need study. That would be the funds to do that, hiring a consultant, but it would certainly be high level. Once that is done, it would make recommendations to dive deeper into particular areas.
I really like that. I honestly believe that the best problem solving comes from the staff. You know, we can have consultants after consultants, but sometimes you need someone, that third party, just to get you on the right track. I absolutely agree that those two at the start, but I agree with Mayor Lowry. You've just bit off too much with what you're doing. Like you've come to us and said, we're overwhelmed. We know you're overwhelmed, and then you're overwhelming yourself some more because you want to do the work. And I think it's time to just realize that, you know, you need to really get your priorities right here and not kill yourselves. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Councillor Ferguson?
Yes, just a quick one. Well, I certainly second what the mayor said in reference to the value of the road tour she took with the director. I in turn took one with the operation director, and we didn't fight, we didn't scrap, we didn't do anything. We just and didn't encounter anybody that wanted to either. So that was a plus. I agree totally with the priorities 1 and 2. I think it's very, very necessary, and I think that's been well explained. The need for it, the value of it, and I think it'll pay dividends. The only question I have with that is, how do we intend to communicate that part of it out to those people, the naysayers on gravel roads? Because it's unbelievable, just the time frame of 2 or 3 weeks, how gravel roads changed. And it's, how do you convey that out there and that people say, oh, that's true, they did. You know, I realize half loads are coming off and everything gets done accordingly, but in that interim period, there's a lot of question marks out there, as we've heard all this fall and now. So that would be the one thing. How do you communicate that? It's very, very interesting, I think. Thank you.
It would be really nice to work with the communications department and set up an annual. Every spring, we're going to push this out. Every fall, we're going to push this out, just as we know this is coming. Councillor Holmes, did you have one more?
Yeah, just I forgot to say, I went on a road tour with Corey yesterday, and it was very productive. We even solved a big problem, a potential neighbor dispute, because we bumped into one of them and assured them we're going to do everything we can, which we are. And I think we headed off a bigger issue. So thank you, Corey.
To be clear, they offered me a tour. I declined because I get really carsick, and driving the back roads is not something I can do for any extended period of time. So where are we now? I think that we are at, yep, I'll come back to you. I think we are at, and that, so the Committee of the Whole recommend Council accept the draft Public Works Service Delivery Review for information and recommend Council direct staff to proceed with 1 and 2. but I don't know what we want to do with the rest. Mayor Lowry and then Councillor Suter.
Yeah, I've got a suggestion for the rest. I'm a little hesitant with the suggestions that had happened about getting in a consultant. That might be the right thing. That might be the right thing. But I think as a first step, if we kick this back to our director and the backup band behind the director there, and ask that the director alongside with our HR business partner and our CEO to take a look at this. Maybe we know within ourselves what needs to happen. You know, the Director of Development Services did a great job on the planning and building side. I'm certain that she did not do that in a vacuum, that she talked to other
Mhm.
people.
I had
in our-
forgotten about
Yeah.
our HR
So
superstar. Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking instead of that third paragraph, that instead we direct the director. We direct the director, his staff as appropriate, our HR business partner and the CAO to consider the long list of policies that we all want to see happen and the best staffing and operational complement to see that happen, just like what we did with building and planning. And it could be that they'll come back and say, you know what, we need to hire someone to do it, or we need this to do it. But I think that's the first step that makes sense and may result in something a little faster than hiring.
Yeah. that's
Hiring
a really
consultant,
good
let me
point. Yeah.
clarify, hiring consultant. So
No,
I don't know if the clerk's got that.
she was typing away there, so I
Sure she
think
got
what-
something.
I have that
Something?
committee of the whole direct the Director of Public Works staff, the CAO, and the HR business partner to identify the optimal staffing complement to undertake the recommendations identified in the service delivery review.
Okay, Councillor Suter, did you have something to add? Councillor Suter, did you have something to add? Yeah, sorry.
Well, actually, I don't because it's frivolous. But if
Okay.
we're going to end, we may as well end this way.
We're not. Councillor
I
Holmes
feel
has,
kind of left out.
Councillor Holmes has something else. If you
Okay.
want to defer, that's,
All right, I'll wait for her.
go ahead, Councillor Holmes.
Thank you. I happen to agree with you that, you know, Mayor Lowry, hiring counselors, maybe hiring counselors is bad too. Consultants, I think they can give you some high level, but it takes the staff to do the job. I don't care what anybody says. I believe that. However, and talking about high level, we're talking about maybe not hiring consultants. I do hope we do leave it in here for the high level gravel needs study, because that's where consultants help, if they can kind of give you some paths to go on and then let the staff do it. Anyway, that's it. Thanks.
Mayor Lowry.
Sorry, I just have one
No,
other
you're good.
further thing here. Should we be connecting time to that second paragraph? Item 1 and item 2? Because I think we all want
we
to do
wanna-
that as soon as possible, and I don't know what that means. If that means for 2027 season, or if it means something different than that.
What seems reasonable to you and the CAO?
So items 1 and 2, items 1 was going to be initiated this year because there's no budgetary implications on that. It's item 2 that there is, which would be a recommendation to be included in the 2027 budget for approval to have the funds to hire a consultant to complete that portion of the project.
Okay.
Items 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19, 2021, those are complete reviews of various areas. So, you know, whether they're included, not included at this time is,
I think
Yeah.
we're all comfortable with having them come back
Yeah.
when 1 and 2 are finished and then
Yes.
take the next bite out of it. Councillor Suter, I don't want to leave you out if you have something to say.
No, it's fine. But I would just like to say thank you to all of you who have come. I'm really proud of the work that you do and have done ever since I arrived. And I do understand that you are stretched, and yet you never give up. Thank you.
Well said, Counselor Suter. And Mayor Lowry.
Thank you. Can we make sure that the timing is reflected in the motion that we just discussed? And then I think on the second piece, we need to attach some timing as well, and I don't want to dictate to staff what that should be. But I certainly would like to be supporting something that goes towards, the 2027 budget or whatever. But that does mean fairly quickly there's a turnaround on it. So I don't know if the CAO has a concept of time on that, but
So the clerks have put up the working document that is this motion. So in spring 2026 and as per the 2027 budget process. So that gets the first one. And then direct Public Works to identify the optimal staffing review. Yeah, so what kind of timing do you want to put on that? Anybody? Counselor Holmes, sorry.
Given the importance of those first two, and if you're hiring someone to do two, if there was money available, and I don't know whether there is any money, surplus this year, would it be feasible to do them in tandem if they could both be done? Like, because it would be what's your thoughts on it? I don't know.
You can't necessarily do them in tandem. One builds on the other.
Okay. So it would not be of any advantage then to try to push it through this year.
No, and staffing does have the capacity to perform project 1, project 2. We wouldn't have the capacity this year to monitor it at this point with our
okay.
staffing levels. Even if someone else was doing it for us, based on the workload they currently have for their current projects. But we certainly have the capacity to complete the detailed information that's required for project 1.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
and that's the information that's required to do project 2.
Thanks so much.
Okay. For you, and so the date of June 9th, 2026, is everybody good with that? Yeah? Is everyone on this side of the table good with the motion? Yeah? Okay.
PW or the one says in spring 2026. We're almost done spring. Yeah, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. Could we have a little bit more time?
Summer 26?
Just take it.
Or just take out the word and leave in 2026? There you go.
it has to be done by Friday.
We're going back over to start.
Yeah, I think the clerks were taking it out of the review, but I also think taking the word out is probably the right thing to do. Okay, who would like to make that motion? Mayor Lowry and second, Councillor Ferguson. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much, everybody. Over to Development Services and Engineering Recommendation Report, Building Fee Dispute Process and Fee. And we have Director Knight and the Chief Building Officer, CBO. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I have a very short presentation tonight, and of course, John Wilson, our CBO, and myself are available for any questions. But this report and proposed amendment came out of council direction from December 2025. Specifically, council directed staff to bring forward a fee dispute process information along with a flat fee for council's consideration. And as noted in the report, building staff have reviewed 22 other municipalities to find out and figure out what the best practices were in terms of a dispute process. Key highlights of that was that about half of these municipalities do have a fee dispute process. It included audited statements of the costs at the end of the building permit process. as well as a review of the audited statements to address if there was any permit fee differences. And in terms of the flat fee, staff are proposing to use the existing alternative solutions fee, which is already in the fees and charges schedule of $1,059.80. So that we don't have to actually do an amendment to the 2026 fees and charges schedule. We can use this fee. It's contained in the report. It provides an overview of what the process is. Also, attachment C provided a bit of a flow chart to walk us through the process. So essentially, if an applicant applies for a permit and it is determined that there's a discrepancy in the claim value of the permit, the CBO would notify the applicant of that discrepancy, and the applicant, if they choose, can submit a written request for the fee review along with that fee that I just quoted, the fee of a little bit more than $1,000. The applicant would proceed through the full building permit process, so would pay the permit fee that was determined by the CBO in terms of the discrepancy using our references that we reference in the building code, in the building bylaw. And then once the construction project is finished and within 3 years, the applicant can submit audited statements. Let me back up. It's anticipated that the construction of the project would be completed within 3 years. And then within 90 days of that completion, the applicant would submit audited statements. And the CBO would review those audited statements. There is an option that if there's a need that a third-party review could be undertaken, that would be at the cost of the municipality, not at the cost of the applicant. And then based on the audited statement or the results of that third-party review, there would be any fee adjustments would be made at that time. And I've left the presentation at that with the recommendation, but I'll end it with the process flow up there.
That's perfect. Thank you, Melanie. Any questions? Councillor Holmes?
I may be totally wrong on this, but when I look at that about it says applicant pays for full permit up front. And why would they not be able to appeal there? Because it seems to me that some applicants would say that permit is just too much. I'm not going to continue. So I don't know whether I'm making sense with what I'm saying, but I'm just wondering why the appeal cannot happen there. The applicant pays, although or the applicant submits written requests for fee review. Like, why do they have to pay the permit before the review? I know it has to maybe do with materials and stuff, but I just think there should be something in there that people can really discuss, because they may decide that, if it's $10,000 more than they expect, they just won't do it.
Through you, Chair, my colleague might want to add on to part of my answer here, but I'll say that a couple of different items there. One piece that we have done consistently in the building department in the last few years is that the applicants do pay for their building permit up front. So that is something that I think we've changed probably about a couple of years ago, where previously they were paying at the end, basically when they were getting their building permit. However, we're running into issues where folks were receiving a building permit, then finding out how much it was and then not paying for it. However, the staff had already done the work to go through the review process for the permit. So that's changed. The other piece of it is that I think you'll find with folks who want to appeal this because the building permit fee is too high, those are going to be very large, expensive projects that would be undertaking. So I think that you will find that, first of all, we're probably not going to get a lot of folks who appeal the fee in the first place, and those who do will have a very high fee. The other option, the other reason why we're proposing the fee up front is because in the event that there is an adjustment made and there's a determination that the building permit fee was too much, it's a lot easier for staff, quite frankly, for us to refund an applicant than it is to actually have an applicant pay extra. And the reason that is because it's one thing to have someone pay at a building permit stage where they haven't started the construction. It's another thing to try and have an applicant pay when the entire development is completed. And I'm not sure if my colleague wants to add on.
Yes, through the chair, one of the pieces important with this, we've structured this that it's only about renovation projects. So new projects still follow the established process that we have. And like Melanie was saying, the submitting the written piece at the start is simply saying to us in writing, we dispute the fee. And then they carry on, then they pay the fee that was determined by what staff have looked at, because that's really what aligns with an industry standard. These are really one-off projects. And then the overall evaluation happens after the construction project has happened, because then they have the information to say it only cost us this much amount of money, not what was previously determined, and then we can do that adjustment afterwards. Otherwise, we're simply relying on the start at the project of them saying, this project's going to cost us $1,000 and we think it's costing them $100,000. So the data is not there to do the evaluation ahead of time.
Councillor Suter.
Okay, I think I understand this in terms of the timing. At the time an applicant applies for your building permit, and say it's a $200,000 project. So they would probably get a bill of $4,000, 2% of the total cost. As you people evaluate that according to industry standards. So that's $4,000. Then they go through if they don't agree with that, do they have to send you a letter at that point to say, I dispute this? And then when it's all over, they get an audited statement. Now, what constitutes an auditor of that statement? An auditor? What is that on an auditor?
Through the chair, that's a great question. Yeah, so in the event that they propose, they identify $50,000 for the fee or the value, and we determine it 200. So there's $1,000 versus $4,000 difference on the permit fee. You're correct on that part. And then at the end, so auditors are, the CAO would understand this, would explain this better than myself. My understanding is they're specialized accountants. That we municipality has our books are audited every year. So that type of a person, they double check that the math is correct, that it's in there. We have the criteria in there that they are somebody that understands construction, that relative to what they're working on. So if it's a renovation of a farm building as opposed to a renovation of an industrial facility, they might be different. But as long as they're a auditor that has experience with construction, then we'll take that at face value. We're not looking to nitpick on this with the applicant or with an auditor. It's a matter of having just simply going, yes, this person actually knows something about construction. That's the auditor piece.
But it has to be a certified accountant, a chartered accountant's firm.
That's the way, when we looked at those 22 municipalities, the half of them that had it was an audited statement, so that it's tabulating those. It's not the applicant with a shoebox full of receipts saying this is what I spent.
Okay. And then after paying a chartered accountant to do the math, and I agree, it has to be a third party who can take a look, and you would get a statement with receipts so that you could look at that. At the end, they have to pay another $1,000 to have an adjudicated resolution. You're talking about this $1,000, $1,089 was in the previous slide. So does that have to get paid once everything is finished?
That is the fee that the applicant would pay to the building department to cover staff time or a third party if necessary to review the submission that they provided. If they provide it to us and we look over it internally and believe it and believe it to be warranted, then we'll go with whatever the result looks like. If we don't, then if it looks more complicated, we will send that out to a third party on our, it's, whether it costs us $500 or costs us $5,000, we're going to have that included. That's covered by the municipality, and the applicant still has to pay this as part of the fee, and that was part of that direction in the resolution, was that we have a flat fee, whereas the previous version that we had tabled was more open to the process and to interpretation for how it was going to be, what cost there would be to the applicant for it, because there's the staff time still have to be covered somehow to be able to process this review.
Okay, I understand that. But I'm just trying to look at the costs involved in the whole process. By the time somebody has disputed the permit in the first place, getting a chartered accountant to go through the shoebox, put it in order, make a statement is a very expensive thing to do. And having done that, then they have to come back and pay another $1,000 to you to look at what the chartered accountant has done. And then sections 4, 1, 10, 8, 9, and 10 have all these things about if it's under 90% or over 110%, then if it's between 90 and 100%, then they're not going to get anything back anyway. And if it's over, they're going to have to pay more. I'm just trying to establish the facts of what's being said here.
Councillor Suter, the CAO would like to say something, and maybe he can provide some clarity.
Thank you, Chair. Kind of 2 points. I think maybe we could tweak the statement audited to maybe include a couple of other things. So maybe to avoid going out and hiring another party, maybe we could tweak it to say the audited statement includes, say, a professional letter or a letter from a professional such as engineer, architect, auditor, chartered accountant, et cetera. So you actually have somebody who has, as the CBO saying, some understanding of construction, but also has some professional designation behind them. I do believe that for the most part, we're going to be looking at projects that are more than someone building a deck, right? We're going to be looking at fairly substantial projects where you are going to likely have one of those professionals involved, because I would imagine the CBO is going to want to see a stamped engineering drawing or an architect's drawing, et cetera. So this is generally where I see this coming into play. If the architect or the engineer is already involved in the process, you're not rehiring somebody else. You simply get them to attest to this was what went into this project, and it's more than just the estimates. And we could probably leave it at that to substantiate things. I think for the $1,089, you're trying to draw a line between everybody wanting this reviewed and a lot of staff time going into this, and someone Like, again, if you have your own architect, your engineer, I'm sure they should be able to, at the front end, say to you, you're not going to save more than $1,000 here, and we're done. Or, yes, this project was substantially less than what was estimated. It's worth the $1,000 to go through this. Here you go. You're trying to draw a line between people just taking up time of the building department doing this
Yes.
and it actually being worth something. Like, you don't want to go through all this for the sake of $200. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Suter.
And through the chair,
Yep.
I understand that. And yes, I think that's very valid alternative. But it was part of the reason why I asked for the specifics in the first place. Secondly, I know this is going to be only certain types of building permits, and they are going to be large amounts. But we have to consider the applicants as well as our side and offer a fair process. Okay? I only have one other question, and that.
Councillor Suter, can I take
I'm
a,
sorry.
I need to move on to the next and then I can be happy to go back. Yep. Deputy Mayor?
Yes,
Thanks.
I'm voicing kind of the same concerns that Councillor Suter voiced, the price of, but the CAO explained that it's bigger jobs. It's not ordinary housing or anything like that. It's going to be major projects that they'll probably have somebody like that on staff, whether it's an engineer or whether it's somebody that's capable of presenting all the bills back to you. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. Yep. Back to Councillor Suter.
Again, a last quick point of clarity. The construction project is expected to be finished within 3 years. Say it takes 3 full years. Then this next process of checking happens. But the last line kind of reads, no refund shall be made for any permit that exceeds 3 years from the date of issuance. Well, if that includes the process, by definition, it's a catch-22. You can't possibly do it if you've taken 3 years to finish the project. You've got whatever time is involved in the process. And it's like, oh, sorry, can't do it.
Through you,
No,
Chair, I
yeah.
mean, we take note of that. We can definitely add some wording in there for some clarity in terms of how that would work. And it's noted. Yes, good point.
So the recommended motion, and then we can adjust it if you'd like. That Committee of the Whole recommend Council approve the amendment of the current building bylaw 24027, similar in effect to attachment A as a 1-year pilot project. I note there it says similar in effect, so that does give you room to play with it, smart girl. So is that okay with everyone, knowing that we'll have some updates there? Okay, would someone like to make the motion? Councillor Holmes, thank you. And Deputy Mayor, as second, any further questions? All in favor? And that carries. Thanks very much. Okay, so we are on to F, notice of motion, and we have a notice of motion from Councillor Ferguson about the review of the sign bylaw 1622. Do you want to introduce it?
Just very quickly, yes, this bylaw is 10 years old with many, many exemptions. And, the buzzword of the day is red tape reduction. I think this one should be red tape addition because believe me, when you look at it, it covers various roads, It covers various public, and it covers municipality, and it covers not-for-profit. So I think it's time for a review. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Counselor Suter?
Just that I agree with Councillor Ferguson. And I really think it's a good opportunity for simplification.
Okay, seeing as everyone seems happy to proceed with that, I'm going to read out the motion. Whereas signed by laws, oh, I'm sorry, you actually did have a question. Go ahead.
Sorry, Chair. I just wanted to just make sure that the staff direction was clear. And the reason why I'm asking is because the second whereas speaks to a broader review of the entire sign bylaw in the longer term. And I just wanted to know if that was part of the staff direction, or that the staff direction right now is just limited to the digital sign section of the bylaw.
Yeah, I see that here. It does specifically speak to digital sign and not the whole sign bylaw. So that's what you meant, Councillor Suter?
I would vote
Councillor
total yes.
Ferguson? Yep.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So whereas sign bylaw 1622 currently includes provisions for digital signs, including their definition, permitting, and enforcement, but the existing measurements and design requirements are outdated, incohesive, and restrictive. And whereas digital signs are increasingly common and advances in technology warrant a review of the current regulations, including a short-term review of the digital sign provisions to ensure consistency across all roads and alignment with the current municipal digital sign usage, while considering a broader view of the entire sign bylaw in the longer term. Therefore, be it resolved that council directs staff to review the digital sign provisions of sign bylaw 1622 and report back with recommendations respecting how digital signs are defined, permitted, and enforced. Councillor Ferguson, you'd like to make that motion?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Okay, is there a seconder? Councillor Holmes, and any questions, further questions, comments? Councillor Holmes?
I think this is to Melanie. I think the business about the review of the entire sign bylaw in the longer term, was it not reviewed some time ago? I kind of remember something about that.
Through you, Chair, there wasn't actually an application for an exemption to the sign bylaw a couple of years ago, which was later withdrawn, I believe. But that is the only review. Staff currently do not have a plan to review the sign bylaw in its entirety, which is why I raised that staff clarification.
Okay, so I guess what you're saying is you'd like a bit of time to develop that plan for the longer term.
Yes, through you, Chair, I would say either that, or if council wants to direct us to take a review of the entire sign bylaw sometime in the longer term, that would be welcomed as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Ferguson, did you want to add something?
Yes, I could certainly be, that's acceptable to me because this particular thing was generated as a result of an individual request for a sign. So I can see, I appreciate where you're coming from, that it's a longer review and probably involves the county as well. Because if I can recall way back when, it was the county that kind of kicked this whole thing off when they were looking at distances in their properties, that type of thing. So I agree with you, Mel. Yeah.
Okay, so
Is that all right?
that's okay. Do we have an amendment to the motion then?
How do you want to address the longer term
So,
then? The way we could,
Can we just assign dates, maybe?
yeah,
Can we say that the digital sign review be done when the digital sign can't be done for next term of council? So when do you want that? When is your, Councillor Ferguson, this is to you. When would you like the review of the provisions relating to digital signs be done?
I would prefer ASAP, and I don't know what that date might be. Because as I'm repeating, we do have an individual just waiting. And I realized I have to send a drawing and that type of thing, and it takes a bit of time, but I would hope before the end of the year.
For the end of the year?
I would hope so.
That's for the digital sign?
Yes, or
And then longer term, could we be vague and
should
say
be
that,
established by maybe through planning.
and then the longer term piece for the entire review of the sign bylaw, could that be done in the subsequent, the following
In the
term of
following-
council?
Yes, if that's reasonable.
Term?
Is that
Okay.
reasonable?
So digital sign review by,
The end of 27?
No.
no, you want.
26,
By
sorry,
26.
26.
By the, okay, so the review, so we'll say that council directs staff to review the digital sign provisions of bylaw 1622 by the end of 2026. Is that sufficient for you, Councillor Ferguson?
Unless it could be done sooner, just to issue one permit. I don't know if could that one be reviewed? With the understanding that it would be,
Through you, Chair. I'm sorry, I don't want to make this more complicated, but the sign bylaw does have a process whereby an individual property owner could come forward and request an exemption similar to the one that Councillor Holmes recalled. That is possible for an individual property owner to do that now. So we would bring forward a report about the requested exemption. So that would be a council, obviously that would be a council decision and would go at the pace that the applicant would put the request forward. If you would rather have staff look at digital signs overall in the sign bylaw, that's something that potentially we can do before the end of the year, but it would be looking at how digital signs are defined, permitted, and enforced specific to this staff direction, which would take longer.
well, I don't want to complicate it, but I think if you said an individual could come forward anytime, so that's great. I appreciate that. And then I can accept the others you're saying down the road, if that's reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Okay.
Thanks very much.
Deputy Mayor, did you have something?
Yes.
Your mic.
Just on the digital signs, I think, can he not apply for a minor variance?
Through you, Chair, yes, that's what the sign bylaw says. Technically, it's not a minor variance. They actually have to come to council. It's written in the sign bylaw as a minor variance, but Committee of Adjustment actually doesn't have the authority to give minor variances to a sign bylaw. So it's a bit of an error in the bylaw, but regardless, they could apply and we would bring forward a report to council and council could decide on whether or not an exemption
I think that'd
should
be the
granted.
quickest way, if Councillor Ferguson wanted appease people on the main street of Pakenham.
Okay, so we've made a couple of updates just to throw in dates. Are you both, the mover and seconder, both okay with that? Okay. Any further questions, knowing that the motion's updated a little bit? Okay, all in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. All right, so we're down to quarterly reports. You have the Department of Roads and Public Works and Development Services and Engineering. And as always, feel free to contact the staff members directly. Information items, no correspondence. Mayor's report, how are you feeling tonight? Do you want to push that off? Okay.
We've been pushing this off for too long. We will do this. There's not a whole lot here, actually. Not that we have not been busy, but just so a few updates that I think I have been sharing all the way along, but just it's good to have them in one place to see what has been happening. So regarding growth and development investment, so essentially our MM 2048 plan, the CEO and I did meet with the Premier's Deputy Chief of Staff back in February. He came to beautiful Mississippi Mills and we had coffee at, where do we have coffee? OVC. We had coffee at OVC and was kind of neat. He had a staff member with him who knew the owners and knew they had just had a baby. And so there was lots of nice kind of connections and whatnot. We had quite a good discussion. I'm suggesting, because we should be considering our AMO delegations as well, I'm suggesting as a continuation of the conversation on our growth and development plans, that we seek a delegation opportunity with the acting Minister of Infrastructure. That's Minister McCarthy. We have not had a conversation with Minister McCarthy yet, so I think we might as well give it a try. Make sure that all of those who are making decisions about infrastructure and investments is aware of the plans that we've done and the challenges that we have in Mississippi Mills. And I think it would also be wise for us to seek a delegation with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing on some updates to the plan, but I think also the potential impacts from the development charge changes, the proposed changes from the province and federal governments. I think that's something that needs to be well understood from a community like ours that probably would not have the benefit of the funding that's coming through those changes. Yet we're adjacent to the city of Ottawa, who would be and could lessen their DC charges. So, and I think there's also a really good story there about what we have been able to achieve with the Housing Accelerator Fund money that we received from CMHC. The Planning Department has done a fantastic job with all of the tools that we wanted to see happen. And I think the housing starts that we see in our quarterly update there, I think that is something that we should be making sure that the minister understands as he's making decisions about DCs and who is going to receive support and who would not. So that's my recommendation in terms of steps on the growth and development side of things. A few other items that have happened over the last quarter. I participated in a regional economic development roundtable. It was in March. It was quite an interesting group of, there were some politicians, there were lots of business owners, and was interesting to see the difference between what's happening on the ground in Frontenac versus Lanark. It was led by MP Jenna Sudds, our wonderful chair of Committee of the Whole, led the delegation regarding the Regional Training Center, the Fire Regional Training Center, with the Minister of Labor, Immigration, Training and Skills Development back in January. And I think from everything I have heard, really highlighted the strength of the Regional Training Center and sought opportunities for partnerships and support. So there's opportunities for us to continue that advocacy either with that ministry or with the Ministry of Emergency Preparedness, who has been here and has seen our Regional Training Center. We hosted the Minister of Agriculture and Agribusiness here back in March as well, along with our warden and our MPP, John Jordan. There was how can I say, there was a very last minute opportunity to have the minister visit somewhere in Almont. And so I pitched Hummingbird Chocolate Maker, who was not on the radar of the minister or of John Jordan. So it was a great opportunity for Drew and Erica to explain all of the things that they do. They're the biggest craft chocolate maker in Canada. And so they were able to explain some of the needs of the truly small enterprises and some of the potentials for agribusiness, for agritourism and food manufacturing in general in Eastern Ontario. We also visited Fortune Farms. He did a really great little video at Fortune Farms highlighting the maple syrup business in Lanark County. Continued great dialogue between our MP and our MPP, particularly with our MP Scott Reid in relation to the federal Alto high-speed rail project. And then two other things I would highlight is affordable home ownership. I've had the opportunity to continue some discussions with Sarah. Gosh, what is Sarah's name? Sarah Cooper. Thank you, Sarah Cooper, who's the executive director of Habitat for Humanity Greater Ottawa. And I was able to introduce her to some other not-for-profits in the area still the big piece is looking for land. Melanie, our Director of Development Services, had joined me for that meeting. And in the Housing Accelerator, one of the projects that they had done was the Affordable Housing Toolkit, like a partnerships package. And we made sure that they had that resource. Really next steps is identifying what the challenges would be with the lands that we have identified as possibilities for partnerships with affordable housing providers. And as we discussed at this table, they're all challenging parcels for one reason or another. But staff are working through that with the Habitat for Humanity staff to understand if there's an opportunity there and if those challenges are ones that they would be able to overcome. And then lastly, with my Roma hat on, I delivered remarks at the Good Roads Conference back in March as well. And I participated in a panel that Nigel Belchamber was the moderator of, alongside with the Good Roads President, Cheryl Fort. She's the mayor up in Hornepayne, and FCM First Vice President Tim Tierney, who will be becoming president at the FCM conference, which I think you're going to. And it was good. I think it was really well received. It was really interesting to sit on a panel with those two because we have very, very different communities, all three of us. So that's the advocacy report. Happy to take any questions if anyone had any, and then we'll just go to the delegations, I think.
Go ahead.
Okay, all right, we'll move to the delegation.
Yep.
So like I had mentioned, I think, and this is on page 139 in your package, I think it would be wise for us to encourage a conversation with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. And as I say, point to how we are exceeding our targets from the Housing Affordability Fund, and then outline those concerns that we have with the changes to the DCs. And then secondly, let's just continue the conversation with anybody in the Ministry of Infrastructure about our growth plans and the related infrastructure needs that we have. So those are the two that I'm suggesting that we take forward to the AMO conference.
Does anybody have any other thoughts or questions? Or, yeah, Councillor Holmes?
Thanks so much, Mayor. I'm just wondering, is there going to be any opportunity to put forward our thoughts on the Mill of Kintail?
Yeah, I think we could do that anytime,
Yeah,
but maybe this isn't quite the time.
no, but
Yeah.
we have to keep it on the burner.
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody else have thoughts? No. Okay, how do we proceed with that? Yeah.
We could just do it as staff direction. We don't
Okay.
need a resolution as part of our delegation submission package. But so the staff direction would be to submit those two.
Okay, I think we're all good with it, so we can go ahead.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor Lowry. It sounds like another busy few months you've had. And now you're sick because of it all. Okay, over to County Councilor's report, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, Travis, Melina gave a couple of presentations, one on the year-end paramedic service report and the other on public access to defibrillator program, which we renewed or revitalized in Lanark County. Calls are down. The drop-off calls to the other municipalities or the city of Ottawa are down 30%. So that's a good thing. And they've heard our complaints about not getting paid for them. So, and the county, Kurt Graves give a presentation on the court security and prisoner transport costs. So it's a big deal nowadays. The courts are getting busier. The people are getting rowdier, and so we're going to, the County of Lanark's going to put forward some money to pay for the security for the court, and they only get a grant of 26,000, but it costs them 269,000. So it's quite a bit of money. And they're going to have to hire one more person to look after security and to muscle people around in the
Well,
court. So
sounds like a
and
good side job
it's-
for
it's
Councillor Ferguson.
it's standard through the county or through other counties that pay for the protection of
Yeah,
the people in the court. So
okay.
that's my report. Thank you.
Wow, that's a lot of money
Yeah. We don't get.
for bad behavior. Yeah. That brings us to Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority. No report? Okay. Police Services Board?
Meeting on the 20th of May.
Okay. And same for the library. We're meeting next week, I believe. Meeting calendar, any thoughts, changes, updates? Okay, that is it. And we are adjourned at 8:56. Thanks, everybody.